Dishwasher Pete, Chapter 2. It's called Maps. If indeed I was born to wash dishes, no one had ever bothered to tell me that it was my calling. I didn't grow up dreaming about becoming a dishwasher. I never yearned for the prestige of an unskilled laborer. I never craved the glory of scrubbing the crap off of America's pots and pans. If I had, though, having such fantasies would have saved me a lot of time trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I thought I had figured it out early on. In fifth grade, for a What I Want to Be When I Grow Up essay, my classmates followed the nuns' prodding by writing that they'd grow up to be lawyers and doctors and presidents. When called upon, I read aloud my essay about a dream life as a house painter. Peter Jordan, the teacher, Sister Peter John interrupted. You can be anything you want. What? I said, I want to paint houses. A house painter? She scoffed. She pointed at the future lawmakers and doctors and presidents around the room as a proof that my goals should be loftier. I didn't buy it. We were all immigrants, or children of immigrants, or African Americans, and I couldn't see any of us rising out of that decaying school that would be shut down within a few years and attaining any lofty goals. Sure, I wanted encouragement. I didn't exactly want the nuns to tell us we were losers and would always be losers, but I wanted realistic encouragement. Growing up in a family of seven and what was built as a one-bedroom apartment in the pre-yuppified Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco in the 1970s, I figured I was destined for a life of drudgery. My father had grown up in an impoverished family of 8 living in a 2-room tenement apartment in Glasgow, Scotland. He was still living in those 2 rooms when, at nearly 40, he married and emigrated to San Francisco in a pursuit of a more prosperous life. For decades, he held a steady job at a customs office. He always arrived on time, worked without complaining, and was the model employee. But those who got ahead, it seemed, were the bullshitters and the backstabbers. Being the good employee counted for little. He was passed over for promotions and raises, and he remained poor. As the youngest of 5 kids, I came on along at a time when my dad seemed bitter about his lot in the world, as if he realized that the American dream was a sham. Watching him trudge up the street after work and then collapse on the couch in frustration, I learned very early on how one could start out poor, work hard all his life, and still end up poor. Sorry about that. Okay. Since I was going to start out poor and most likely end up poor, I decided not to waste time in between. Climb the career ladder, hope to be patted on the head by bosses while trying to get rich in the American dream scam? I decided instead to start at the bottom rung and stay there. Months before writing the 5th grade essay, I had no aspirations for an adult occupation. I only knew that whatever it be, I didn't want to work hard doing it. Then when a house painter spent weeks working on a building across the street from our apartment, I took notice. Every day he sat on the scaffolding planks with his lunch pail on one side of him and his transistor radio on the other. As he hummed along to the music, one hand dragged a paintbrush up and down against the building, while the other hand stuffed sandwiches into his mouth. Odd, I thought. I could do that. But Sister Peter John thought otherwise. Look at Felicitas, she said. She's going to be a nun. I think she'll make a wonderful nun. Yeah, I muttered. Then she can yell at kids for wanting to be house painters. That's the quip that got me sent to the principal's office. It's not that I was merely a lazy kid who didn't want to work hard later in life. If anything, I wanted to work less when I grew up. Throughout my childhood, I held lots of jobs. Passed out flyers for several restaurants, folded pizza boxes at a pizza joint, sold stationery sets and seed packets door to door. Every week I used to clean the dog shit out of one neighbor's backyard and take out the garbage for the old lady next door. And every day from when I was 8 until I was 15, I delivered newspapers. On many mornings, my routine was to rise at 5 a.m., delivered one paper route, if not more, go home, eat breakfast, go to St. Agnes's Church on Masonic Avenue to serve Mass as an altar boy, go to St. Agnes's School on Ashbury Street to work in the cafeteria in exchange for eating whatever I wanted, which really meant drinking cartons of chocolate milk throughout the school day, and then finally go to class to try, often unsuccessfully, to stay awake. I worked the paperboy gig till the summer. Then I signed up with a municipal program designed to get poor teens off the streets and into jobs. Two of my friends had already been hired through the program to hang out in city parks and paint park benches green. Upon signing up, I expressed my desire for the bench painting dream job. Apparently, my passion for bench painting was overshadowed by the program's needs for lifeguards. I was assigned to the swimming pool at the neighborhood boys club, even though I didn't know how to swim. At the beginning of each shift, I stood poolside in my street clothes and announced to the kids in the water that if any of them had planned to drown, they better be off waiting till my shift ended. If need be, I could throw in a styrofoam lifesaver, but I wouldn't be getting in the water no matter what the emergency. It took a few weeks of me refusing to get in the pool before I was transferred upstairs to the crafts room. The crafts room coordinator wasn't happy to have a deadbeat from the pool foisted on her. She already had more employees from the jobs program than she knew what to do with. Since there wasn't much for me to do, I favored sitting around. But she would always dream up some pointless task for me that involved lifting and moving things. One day after she had me haul all the supplies out of a closet, I became frustrated when she then told me to simply put it all back. I went and sat down and said, "Do it your fucking self." Fired from the boys club and dropped from the jobs program, I turned to the help wanted section of the newspaper's classified ads to find a job. The hundreds of listings all seemed to say something about needing experience. Without experience or even a desire to have experience for any job that required it, I remained jobless the rest of that summer. My time instead was spent riding buses. One thing I inherited from my dad was his passion for maps. When I was 8 years old, I used to study his atlas of the 50 states and have him quiz me on the capitals. Later as a teen, I'd buy road maps from the Rand McNally shop on Market Street and pore over them as I envisioned traveling the nation. I wanted to see the river, mountains, and towns in person. I wanted to walk the endless number of streets I saw in the street maps of America's big cities, and know people in all those places. Have friends from coast to coast, and maybe even have a girlfriend somewhere. In the meantime, though, I carried around a map of San Francisco and traveled as much as I could within its borders by attempting to walk the city's every street and ride the entire length of every bus line. It was thrilling to travel through neighborhoods that were, in my small world, far flung. Less thrilling, though, was being singled out in those areas for no other reason than for being a kid from another neighborhood. Whether it was white kids at the end of the El Terrible line in the Sunset District, or black kids in Visitation Valley while waiting for the 50 and 3rd, the local teens didn't discriminate when it came to singling me out and kicking my ass. When I wasn't busy worried about being assaulted, I was worried about getting arrested. My being on the streets was reason enough for cops to stop and search me and my friends. Of the scores of times I was picked up, it was usually for legitimately dumb stuff like trespassing or stealing booze from liquor stores or crowbarring open laundromat coin boxes. But there was also plenty of cockamamie arrests for malicious mischief. I was waiting for a streetcar or male prostitution. I was standing on a corner waiting for a friend. Still, in my circle of friends, I was the angel. As petty criminals, my cohorts were in and out of detention centers and group home facilities. Bragging rights went to those who could boast of their latest crimes or stints of imprisonment. And to those with the bragging rights flocked the girls in my neighborhood. The girls also went for guys with capacities for heavy drug usage, another realm in which I was a lightweight. When three of my friends took to shooting up First speed, then heavier stuff. Not only did I pass each time the syringe was passed around, I was even square enough to try them to kick their habits. It wasn't out of a concern for their health or well-being, though. They'd just become so boring. There was nothing more tedious than loafing around a basement with them as they zoned out or worried about their next fix. One afternoon, in their dealer's apartment, I implored them to give it up. Apparently, such sentiments were bad for business. First, the dealer threw a beer bottle that just missed me. Then he pulled out a gun and threatened to pull the trigger if I didn't shut up about the lameness of shooting up. So I got up and left. He followed me out. When I reached the sidewalk, he stood on the building's front steps and waved his gun around menacingly. Two guys I knew, Kevin and Baldwin, both recently released from juvenile facilities, walked up. When they saw what was happening, they started yelling at the drug dealers. You want to play with guns? Okay, then we'll go get our guns. As the three of them crowded about who would shoot who, I stood to the side, my hands in my pockets, unimpressed. My three junkie friends inside all had girlfriends. Kevin and Baldwin both had girlfriends. And the lunatic waving around the gun, even he had a girl. And then there was me, not an addict, not a criminal, seemingly a nice guy. That was just the problem, though. As my friends often told me, to the girls in my neighborhood, I was too nice. After the standoff ended with no one shooting anyone and no one quitting shooting up, I went and jumped on the streetcar alone and rode it to the end of the line. When I was 16 and my friend Jimmy told his dad that he was dropping out of high school, his father appealed to me. Come on, Pete, you go to school, he pleaded. Tell Jimmy not to drop out. But dropping out of school was hardly unusual. In fact, I named 21 of our friends who'd already dumped school. Of those who still bothered to attend, I could only come up with 3 names, mine included. My dad had also dropped out of high school, but that was because he had to work to support his mom and siblings. To me, he always pushed going to college as if it was some elixir against a life of drudgery. And I did see college as an elixir, though not because I had any grand career aspirations. Rather, I figured it could help me to achieve my goal of simply getting out of San Francisco, away from my prison-brown, drug-addled friends, away from the pesky neighborhood cops. So I went to high school and did as well as one could, who never participated in a single activity or even brought a book home. Just before graduation, I applied to a Catholic liberal arts college that was 25 miles east of San Francisco. I didn't know much about the school other than it was far enough away from my neighborhood that I'd have to move out of the city, but near enough that I could easily scramble back if need be. I was accepted, and fortunately was poor enough that much of the tuition expenses was covered by grants from the college and the state. A $2,500 loan paid for more. I was on my way.